not King Kong coming along.
Uh-huh.
I didn't mean that to rhyme, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it can withstand that. But there's no point in that because you're just spending a lot of excess.
Gotcha.
And so I was to go back in terms of the engineering, what we did, or at least what the truss manufacturers do. They do two things. They look for the wood grade. When they cross cut, they see what it can withstand in terms of strength. And the other one is for plates. And the plates are what hold it all together. And the plates will be different sizes. So that's when when building your own software, that's what you would do. And you have to have like a intimate knowledge of the structural components of those factors.
Yeah.
And then this warehouser, they got into engineered lumber. They still exist, and they're like one of the larger throughout North America. And they engineer lumber and this is what I learned from them, which actually relates to other things in nature that fascinate me, which is, turns out that when you get a piece of lumber from anywhere and you cut it out, it has inherent weaknesses. The knots are weak points throughout that structure. And that's where you'll have failing. But with what turns out to be advantageous is through engineering, through destroying it, believe it or not, destroying that piece of lumber and then putting it together with glue, high-strength epoxy, or different forms of high-strength glue. You, instead of say through a piece of lumber, you have like, say, 10 weak points. And instead of through that piece of lumber, then you if you just use that, cut it and then use it, you still have those weak points that are still there. But when you destroy it and then reconfigure it or reassemble it with glue, you distribute, instead of having concentrated weak points, their weak points are distributed throughout the member.
Interesting.
And the strength is reinforced by multitudes. So when they configure that, that's why the manufactured lumber industry has kind of exploded.
So I should be using that for my rooftop on the beach, for my...
Well, so for example, I have a build going out or at least I'm trying to. I'm still in the paperwork process of it all. And if it's going to happen in Kissimmee, and if it does, I'm looking, I want to not just have like your traditional build, but for me, where it's going to be located, it's going to be on the lake there, the large lake. So I'm trying to trick it out so that it stands out and it is more attractive to potential occupants or people that want to live, as opposed to just making it just like everything else. And okay, the color is different and the floor layout maybe slightly is different, or the finishing pieces are slightly different. But I want to make it stand out so that it's kind of like part of a signature of my my actual build, but my company, you could say. And it's what's called mass timber, and mass timber is an extension of what now has been like manufactured lumber. But what they're doing now with mass timber is they are taking like 2x6, high grade 2x6, or at least starting with 2x6, and then they cross laminate them, but with glue, the actual lumber unit, and they make the timber pieces, but they're making the entire structure with it.
But are you going to use that for your entire structure as well?
And so I'm looking into that. It's expensive, or not ultra expensive. There's positives and negatives to anything. And
how's it against termites? Because we have termite
exactly.
problems.
So they can treat it, and then it's different. Like you can get certain sections. That's what they do with, for example, the timber glue lambs and that they use on regular home platform building, like the regular building. They'll still treat that lumber. At least most places do. Especially like here in Hawaii, they would do that. So they do that. And then you can always pay for that.
Yeah.
Everything is still going to be a cost in the end. So that's something you just have to weigh out. So I mentioned that because when I called them to speak with the sales rep, he was saying that I was initially wanting to know what the cost would be for everything. Like if I was to use mass timber on everything. and that would be the most expensive. And I wanted to know that to see if I could go forward with it, the price per square foot of what that cost would be. And then after talking to him, he said, you can, and I already knew that because that's kind of like in anything. There's always ways around everything. Even if someone says no, you just give it some time and something will present itself. Nature seems to do that in a mysterious way. Anyhow, he was saying, if it's too much, we can work with whatever your build cost or budget is. We can just create the frame, the actual frame, and then you could substitute like engineered lumber for the flooring, for the roofing, and all that. So in terms of roofing, it would work. However, roofing can be, it depends. You would have to look into, because they do sell certain pieces, but I don't know, it would have to go through like a structural engineer, and they would have to do runs of the test to see if it's going to be adequate or not.
Gotcha.
Because they do, I know on the West Coast, they would use a lot of that into some of the roofing and everything like that. Yeah. I don't know if I can't say, I've never done that here in Florida, so I don't know. I'm sure they could, but I've looked into different ones, and there's this one German company that actually started, they have plants here in Florida, northern Florida. I just found that out last week.
Excellent.
And they're mass timber as well as engineered lumber. So there's definitely the manufactured lumber companies that exist.
Excellent.
And not just even here, Florida, like throughout the Southeast, another one in Atlanta.
And you've already selected your lot and everything?
Yeah, that's already, we found that there's different lots that I've looked at, but in terms of the one where it's kind of like that nugget that you would like, okay, this is a good choice, that's the one. Only because of where it's located. I would create, it's rated right now or zoned for 20 units per acre, and it's like 0.81, so just like 4/5 of an acre. And
are you going to do multifamily there?
Yes. So that's what, since I haven't put up a build yet, but since I have the building background, I'm not intimidated.
Right.
It's more, for me, it's kind of like, I'm not wanting to create necessarily a rocket ship and go to the moon, but I'm wanting to get out of the atmosphere, so to speak.
Yeah. You're doing 10 units then?
So since it's rated for 20 per acre, it's 4/5, and I could put 16. So at least I'll put 16.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, but I looked into it, and I am going to submit to have it rezoned, so that I could put at least twice that.
Excellent.
I'm going to try for at least 30, if not more. I would like to put it like whatever the rezoning would be. Say that they would say it's a 7-story maximum. I'll do that. Especially, for example, that I found out with this mass timber is a new thing. It's only been the U.S. hasn't really been. There's a few structures that they've built with it, but in terms of years, I think the U.S. has only been doing it for like 10 years.
How long do you think it'll last? Like, I know CMU will last for centuries.
So it's because it's high grade lumber. They ran certain tests on it. They have to get it passed. So they ran like fire tests on it and structural and all that kind of stuff. And they sustain. So in terms of they use high grade 1 lumber. So it's the high end lumber. There's actually 2 grades. They can use like Douglas for high end premium, or the grade 1 pine, southern pine that they have here. They're usually what's local to the area, but they use the select one. And so the time period is at least for what they've shown, I think they have like minimums. I think it's like 20 or 30 years, if not more. Because, for example, this one, when I found out about it was a year ago, and I looked at a YouTube video, and they built in downtown Milwaukee I think it was a couple years ago, they built the largest mass timber structure of, I think it was like 25, 26 stories in the U.S. That's the first one. Yeah, so the fact that they can do that, I didn't look at all the mechanics behind it or the engineering, but the fact that they can do that, I already knew. They're doing it for long term. It's not like, just for whatever, 10 years. So, yeah, and then it gives a different vibe, and that's why particularly I'm wanting to get into it. I'm not going to use that for everything, but for sure, if I could get this, out of the ground and built and put, like, say, if they allow 40 units,